Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. Man, check this out. On this episode, I'm going to do something a little different. As you can see the title, this is a remix. No, I'm not Puff Daddy. We know Puff invented the remix, but this is a remix of a podcast that I did just a few weeks ago, which was a remix of a original mix, limited edition mix, if you will. First and foremost, man, shout out to the big homie, man, OTR Mike. Please, man, please, sir, check out his podcast. OTR Mike's been doing it for a minute, man. He started out with the OTR crew, and then he kind of branched off and did his own solo thing. And subscribe to his podcast, man. Good brother out of Baltimore. When you turn on his, if you watch him on YouTube, you know he'll come with his little Orioles hat. And I mean, I got to give it up to the Orioles. The Orioles currently, at the time of this recording, one of the best teams in baseball. Unfortunately, my Yankees aren't, but that's another story for another day. But OTR Mike he just recently did an episode called the Cookout Etiquette, which was the remix. He originally talked about cookouts and going to cookouts, how they do it up north, up top, as we say down south. OTR Mike, as I mentioned, is from Baltimore. And then subsequently, my brother Baylor from LA, he did a West Coast version of, kind of the do's and don'ts at cookouts, right? And then so, a couple of weeks ago, I did the Southern edition. And OTR Mike did a remix, kind of basically he split Baylor and I's episodes, and he, had audio pieces where he, asked us questions. And so this is kind of like a remix to a response to the remix, if you will. But yeah, I got the link in the description. I forgot to put it in when I did the last episode, but yeah, check that out. Check out I'll put his link tree in the description. Check him out, man. Dope brother, man. Real cool, real smooth. I'm looking forward to getting him on this podcast for sure. Yeah, so we've been talking about this. So let me go back and just kind of touch on some of the things that he asked. One of the things that I didn't mention, at least I don't think I mentioned in my original episode was, when you get to be a certain age, and I think Mike might be 40, around 40, I guess, mid 30s, early 40s. And I apologize, Mike, if you're younger than that. I don't think you are. but one of the things that Mike said, and I forgot to mention too on my episode, was like, when you get to a certain age, it's particularly when you're going to cookouts, one of the things that people really don't talk about, but we do, particularly as we get older in age, we ask the question. And it's a simple question, but we always ask, who's going to be there? I mean, like, that might be the first question that gets asked. I mean, like, because here's the thing. OTR Mike's married, as a kid. I think he's got one son. His son is, I think, 4, if I'm not mistaken. But with him being married, like when you're married, particularly if you've been, single for a while as a guy, and I can only speak for guys, we just want to go where the action is, when we're younger. So it doesn't really matter if, and I talked in the previous episode about me and my boy Will went to a cookout that was on the other side of the city of Atlanta where we live. And, it didn't matter, because it's like we young, we don't care about burning gas and, traffic or anything like that. We just, we were going to a cookout. It didn't matter. And we knew it was going to be women there. So it was like, it's whatever, right? When you get older, particularly when you're married, Sometimes, not all people, but sometimes, when you are married and you're a couple, you tend to go where other couples are, right? So generally speaking, you want to know if there are going to be other couples there. In my case, when I ask who's going to be there, I want to know if there's going to be some dudes there. And I want to know if there's going to be some other men there because, men, I always say, man, men don't really, most men, I can't say all, most men don't have a problem being in a room with other men and being able to bond and have a conversation and just kicking on some regular, just for a couple hours. I mean, because, we have common themes and common bonds that we talk about. We're not going to talk about the weather or nothing like that. It usually involves where you from, whatever you start talking. Then you start talking about sports and, then you start talking about music. And I mean, those things kind of always come into play. I always say, you can drop 3 dudes off if they're cool, not no lames. You can drop 3 dudes off in just about any type of setting. And most cool dudes will be able to hang in that setting and be good, no matter what the circumstances are. So for me, as far as being a married man, yes, especially now at 50, I want to know who's going to be there. And I want to know, is there going to be other cool guys like me? Because if you're a cool guy, we can have a conversation. We can bond over, who's the greatest rapper? Who's the greatest rap group of all time? I mean, there's a bunch of things that we can bond over. Because like I said, guys, we kind of tend to hit it off like that, if you will. So that's Mike, that's probably the first question I ask. And another reason why I ask that too is because my wife is in a sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. And so if we go to a cookout, I don't, it's not that I mind the Deltas or any other sorority. I don't want to be the only dude in a spot where it's just a bunch of women, a bunch of married women talking. Is I'm good on that. I need some fellas. I need somebody, we can have. And that's not to say that I can't hold my own in a room full of Deltas or AKs or whomever, because I can. I can sit in any room. I can go kick it at the White House. But for me to be comfortable and be cool, and especially if I know I'm going to stay there a couple of hours, I gotta be. I'd like there to be some cool dudes where I'm going. So anytime we get invited to a cookout or something like that, I'm always that'll usually be the first question I ask. Well, who's going to be there? And it's funny because I got a story to tell you. Because since that last episode, we actually went to a cookout, just 2 weeks ago. So, the one thing that OTR Mike mentioned on his podcast was when Baylor, because Baylor's in LA, born and raised, Baylor talked about, going to cookouts. And of course, if you're in LA, sometimes, you may have to go someplace where there's the, gang element, and it's not that you're in any hurt, harm or anything like that, or in the line of fire, because, most times people, and Baylor, alluded to in the podcast, ain't nobody trying to trip at no cookout, because they don't want to piss nobody off, and it's all good. So OTR Mike asked me on his podcast was, if gangs were an issue or anything like that, what you could wear to a cookout or whatever like that. I guess the best way I can describe it is, and that's not, and I'll be clear, I'm not about to sit here and tell you that there aren't gangs in the city of Atlanta, because there are. But I'll be honest with you, Mike, I'm not going to a cookout where there could be anybody that is repping their set at the cookout that I'm at. I think those days for me are long gone, where I would be, someplace where that could be an issue or be even a possibility, if you will. So clothes, it don't matter. So I mean, you can wear whatever you want to wear. Here people don't trip off that. Even the gangs that the very few gangs that I do see or have seen, and they don't trip off colors here. I mean, I don't know that that's a necessarily a thing in the South. It could be other places, but again, I don't necessarily. I'll be honest. I don't really frequent areas where where a lot of gang shit be popping off. But that's a good question though. But yeah, I'm definitely not trying to. I ain't trying to get it in, if you will. And you know what's interesting though, Mike? And it's something that I've done, and I didn't really think about it until you asked the question. And I think I've done it subconsciously. But like I remember last summer, in fact, one of the homies was telling me about a cookout that was popping off or whatever like that. And I said, well, where is it? And he was like, oh, it's in East Decatur. Nah, player. I ain't going to East Decatur. You know why? Because I used to live in East Decatur. Now, where East Decatur? No, East Decatur is like, first of all, Decatur, where it's greater. It just depends on where you are. Like you literally, I'll give you an example. Like the huge golf course is it's called East Lake. World-renowned golf course. I mean, like they've had PGA Tour events there. But you literally can come out of there and go down the street and make a right, and you be in the hood. Not the rap hood, but the hood. So nah, I don't so I guess what I'm saying is, Mike, I've subconsciously like conditioned myself to ask, like if somebody says, well, hey, such and such is having a cookout. I think the first question I'm gonna say is who's gonna be there. And the second question I'm going to ask is, where is it? Because I know my city. I mean, I've been here now at the time of this recording, 26 years. So I've lived in Atlanta longer than I've lived anywhere else. I'm not originally from Atlanta. I'm from Florence, South Carolina. And, but Atlanta's home. And so I know the city and I know the streets. I ain't in the streets, but I know what streets not to be on. So if you told me that the cookout was, somewhere on Campbellton Road, Nah. Because the thing is, like, you're not going to be in any trouble, but you could be trouble adjacent. So just to avoid being trouble adjacent, I'll probably just go over here or stay at the crib. That's always an option, staying at the crib. So yeah, to answer your question, colors, clothes, it don't matter. You're pretty cool wherever you go. One thing OTR Mike mentioned about cookouts was up there in Baltimore, they will play cards. Baylor mentioned dominoes. I can't really say that I've ever been to a cookout here that didn't have spades or dominoes. Like every cookout got to have spades. Now I don't play dominoes. I will watch, but I don't play dominoes. But definitely spades. In fact, my wife and I are the reigning spades champions. If you want some, punks jump up to get beat down. Hey man, we are like the 72 Dolphins, man. We don't lose, man. So I mean, my man King Germ from Pod and Saved Our Marriage, I told him he has an open invitation. When he and his wife come to Atlanta, they're more than welcome to come to the crib, hang out with us, kick it with us, and get beat down on the spades table. Because they swear up and down that they nice like that. I don't know. I've never seen King Germ play, but he talks a lot of shit, so that tells me he probably can't play. Or at least not as good as me. So Sharice and I, we're pretty dope on the card table. So yeah, to answer your question, Mike, yeah, you gotta be nice on the card table. Like I said, dominoes I don't play. I'll watch. I hadn't really figured it out. But it looked real cool to play. But cards, yeah, you gotta have cards going. That's a definite. Now, Mike did mention on his episode about how do you handle the aspect of talking to somebody? Meaning, like, how do you do it when you hollering at somebody? Like, do you kind of wait and see, or do you rush them, or do you try to get, your friend or whatever? Like, let's say your friend invites you to a cookout. Do you If you see somebody you like, you see a lady that you like, do you just bum rush her and just start talking to her? Do you kind of slow play it, or you kind of maybe get your friend to, run a little interference for you? Here's what I'll say. It depends on who you're with, and it depends on the circumstances. What I mean by that is that, Mike, if let's say I invite you to my cookout, right? And let's say you're not married, you're single. And so you come and you see somebody, you see one of my wife's friends and she's cute or whatever like that. You got to come to me and be like, yo, what's up with Red? What's up with, chick in the red dress? And then I'll kind of give you the 411. I'll be like, man, yeah, you can holler her. Or I might be like, nah, she family, man. You can't. Because here's the thing, like, if I know OTR Mike ain't about shit, and that's not because trust me, OTR Mike is a good dude, solid cat, solid brother for sure. But if I know he ain't about nothing, and this is a family friend, it's probably not in my best interest to introduce the two, because something's gonna happen, right? And then I don't have any control over it. And I mean, of course, they're two consenting adults, but still, yeah, you don't want that. You don't want that. So yeah, it just depends on who you're with and what the circumstances are. The one thing I will say, Mike and Baylor, you got to be able to read the room. Like, if you see something that you want and you want to go after it, then go after it. But now, listen, Baylor, listen, Mike, you cannot, if you strike out with this one over here, you can't go try to talk to this one over here. It's not going to work. It is not going to work. And that's always funny to see that play out, because sometimes you could see a dude trying to holler and you can spot him a mile away and he's going to strike out. And as soon as he strikes out, all you can do is just laugh. And then it's like, okay, he's about to find some other victim or at least make an attempt to find another victim. So yeah, that's always funny to me. Always funny to me. And then Mike also talked about, he asked the question of like, as far as the food and the specialties. Now I gotta, before I even get into the specialties, Mike, I gotta ask you a question. Now, Mike said on his podcast that he does not eat crabs. And he gave an explanation, but I'm like, that blew my head. I'm like, Mike, you're from Baltimore. You're from Charm City. I mean, like, you really don't get great seafood up top, but you get it in Baltimore. I can't really speak to the seafood that you can get in New York because, I'm a little partial because in the South, we got this water here and, we're close to the water. Well, we're not close to the water in Atlanta, but like where I'm from in Florence, I mean, we're not far from Myrtle Beach. You got Charleston, you can get good seafood, like from the real water. And so, I mean, like Baltimore is known for seafood and known for crabs. I mean, like, and I'm talking blue crabs. I ain't talking crab legs. And he gave his explanation. I thought it was funny, but and Mike, I'm asking you this as somebody who is a connoisseur of blue crabs. I love blue crabs. Side note, Mike, I'll never forget. I came to DC for a wedding probably about 7-8 years ago, and I flew into BWI. And on my way, there was some little, I don't even know the name of this place. Some little spot, could have made maybe about 5 minutes from BWI. And they sold these crab cakes, and these crab cakes were huge. And I think I paid like $14 for one crab cake. I ended up getting like two. And but this was the best crab cake I ever had in my life. And Mike, I kid you not, I don't know where that place is. I don't know the name of it. When you mentioned it on your episode, I tried to Google it to see if I could find it. if and when I ever come back to the DMV, well, I should say when, because I'll be back at the DMV. When I come back to the DMV, I'm going to try to find that place because that crab cake would make you slap your mouth. I've never had a crab cake that big and that good. Man, listen, that was great. But yeah, I just found it interesting that Mike said he didn't eat crab. But he also asked about like, what's the specialty at the cookouts in the South? I guess it differs for some people. I mentioned on my episode that, one of the specialties is you got to have mac and cheese. You got to have potato salad. Some people like to do mac and cheese at cookouts. It just depends. I'm more of a like hamburger guy, right? So a hamburger's got to be a special, either hamburger or ribs. Hamburger, ribs, one of the two or both. They got to be your cookout staple, right? A hamburger in the South, a hamburger or ribs is just like the Gap Band being played on at your cookout. If you got music at your cookout, you got to play the Gap Band, right? And so like it's the same for me as far as hamburger and ribs. Now here's the thing I will say. For some, it's chicken. Chicken is very, very interesting. Here's the key about chicken. Chicken, you can actually mess chicken up, right? You have to be very careful with chicken because you're cooking it on the grill, chicken can be undercooked. I went to a cookout last summer. I'm not gonna call any names. I'm hoping this person not listening to this podcast. Well, I mean, they wouldn't listen to the podcast. I wouldn't care, but anyway. So I get there and, we kicking it or whatever like that, me and a couple of the boys. And, it's like, yeah, go ahead and get something to eat, but get yourself a plate. And so get a plate, chilling, sit down, had a chicken wing, right? So chicken wings a little bit, because you gotta, as somebody who's a grill master such as myself, I understand you gotta, with chicken wings, you gotta make sure you get inside that wing and cook it. And obviously you don't want to burn the chicken, but you also don't want to undercook it, right? So here's the funny thing. So the chicken was nice and it wasn't charred, but it was nice brown skin joint. And I only got one piece of chicken, right? Because that's the thing. Like when I go to cookouts here, I always start slow because I don't know what I'm gonna like. So I'm gonna get a little bit of potato salad. If they got mac and cheese, I'm gonna get a little bit of mac and cheese. I'm gonna get a piece of chicken, maybe a rib, maybe a burger, and call it a day, right? So I start small and then I kind of get it, and I give myself small portions that way. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the last podcast, but give yourself small portions. That is a Southern cookout staple. And the reason why you want to give yourself a small portion is, particularly if you're at a cookout where you didn't do the cooking, if you give yourself a small portion and you don't like the way it tastes, you ain't got to worry about eating it. You can just get a bite and then throw the rest away. But now, if you pile a bunch of mac and cheese on your plate and that mac and cheese ain't hitting, you can't really throw it away because guess what? Somebody's watching you. And somebody's going to be like, yo, that dude over there in the blue shirt, he didn't eat all that mac and cheese. He threw half of the plate away. Somebody's watching your plate always. So Baylor, OTR Mike, make sure your first go round, give yourself small portions. That's what I do. So anyway, back to the chicken. So I take a bite into the chicken. I'm chewing it. It's cool. And I look down at the chicken and it's a little bit pink. Not the part where I bit, but right next to where I bit. And so I'm like, okay. So something tells me, hey, tear off a piece. So the next piece of chicken I tear off, and it's red. I mean, it is red. It's about as red as my hat. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. The chicken was undercooked. So at this point, I got to make a decision. I have to make an executive decision to throw this shit away because I'm not about to get salmonella around here. And I literally only took a bite. And what was weird was the young lady who was hosting the cookout. She didn't see me eating the chicken, but she saw that piece of chicken on my plate. She walked in the room and she walked out the room and came back. The chicken was gone because I thrown the chicken in the trash. She was like, "Oh, you ate your food that fast?" Yeah. I threw it in the trash because I mean, the chicken wasn't cooked, and so chicken is touch and go, man. You gotta cook that chicken all the way through. Personally, I don't cook. Like if I do chicken on the grill, it'll be like little drumettes. I don't do the whole, because that's a lot, man. And you got a better chance at cooking the chicken all the way through with drumettes than you do an actual wing. I mean, you can, but it's just, I've seen people burn up chicken, and I've seen people try to put a whole bunch of barbecue sauce on it to mask it, and that's not cool because your chicken still ain't cooked, and nobody's here to eat pink chicken or red chicken. So if it's bleeding, nah, dog, it's not gonna happen. I mentioned earlier that we did get a chance to go to a cookout since my last episode, and this was fun. We had a really good time. Plenty of liquor there, and what was weird was we had the festivities were taking place in the basement, and there was a bonus room adjacent to the basement, and in there they had some tables set up for cards and dominoes and everything, and nobody went in the room. Like everybody stayed in like the little main room or whatever. And so the hosts, who were really, really cool, super dope people, they set up a karaoke machine. They had speakers and lights and everything, real nice, big production, like almost like you would hear or see at a bar or restaurant, right? So they asked everybody, "Hey, are you going to participate in the karaoke?" Everybody's got to do it. And so people were looking around like, "What do you mean we got to do it?" But they wanted everybody to participate. And I mean, like, you log in and it's like 7,000 songs you can pick from or whatever like that. So I elbow Sharice, like, which one you want to do? And she's like, "I don't know, I'm nervous." I mean, it's probably at this cookout, it's probably about 50 people, which is cool. Everybody's grown adults, and we're vibing and we're having a good time. And so then people start getting up singing, doing different songs and stuff, and it was good. It was really, really good. And so then it was our turn. I had selected a little rendition that I wanted to do, and Sharice was nervous, but I wasn't nervous. I mean, I had been drinking. We both had been drinking, but I'd had 2 drinks, which was all I was going to drink that night anyway, because I was driving. But I was like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm amongst other adults. It's not like I'm on Star Search or I'm getting paid or I'm trying to get a record deal. So the song that I selected for the two of us to do ain't nothing but a G thing. Man, listen. You would have thought I was Snoop Dogg, for real. Baylor, you'd have been so proud. OTR Mike, y'all would have been and what's interesting is, of course, it was videotaped, but I didn't videotape it with my phone. So, like, the host, and I was telling Sharice, I was like, you got to get the video from the host, because I will actually put it on. I don't know if I'll put it on YouTube, but I'll probably put it on IG. I was really Snoop for like 3 minutes. I was Snoop and Sharice was Dre. And I think it goes without saying that we turned the party out. So yeah, I mean, those kind of things happen, man. I mean, Southern cookouts, anything can happen. And I really, really enjoy myself. Um, so yeah, OTR Mike, that can happen. I think if you want to liven the party up even more, if you got a karaoke machine, pull one of those out and tell your guests, hey, pick a song. And I mean, this went on for probably about an hour and a half until we, and I mean, it actually was going on even after we left. So, I mean, like we had a really good time. We only did one song. I mean, and it was interesting because we were, when we were on our way home, we was like, we could have done this song or we could have done that song. And Sharice's like, we could have done Regulate. And I was like, you would have been Warren G? So we laughed about it and everything. And even in the subsequent days after the cookout, we were really talking about like songs that we could do at the next cookout. So, but rap songs, I ain't trying to sing for y'all. I don't sing outside the shower. But yeah, OTR Mike, I mean, like that's some of the things that, can really get down at a Southern cookout. Now I will say this much. OTR Mike did mention, well, Baylor mentioned on his podcast, and OTR Mike touched on it briefly, Shasta sodas. We do have Shasta sodas at cookouts in the South too. Now, mostly people are going to bring Sprite or they're going to bring Coke because it's Atlanta and this is a Coke town. But Shastas are very key because they are cheap. They're dirt cheap. I mean, like you can buy like a case of Shasta sodas for like $1.87 right now. They're dirt cheap sodas, and most people don't drink them who drink sodas, but it's kind of one of those things like after everything else is gone and people aren't drinking and stuff. I mean, it's something to have. So I'm pretty sure that nobody, and in fact, OTR Mike, there were Shasta sodas at the cookout that we were at. We didn't drink them, but I mean, it was enough Coke and enough Sprite for everybody. So I don't think anybody's going to touch them. But yeah, I did see some Shastas and some other bootleg sodas that I really make too much money to be drinking. I value my kidneys. But yeah, man, that's what it was, man. That's what it is. I hope I answered all your questions, Mike. Yeah, this has been another edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning into this bonus episode. Like I said before, make sure that you check out Baylor's episode. Check out both of Mike's episodes. And of course, you guys are here. Always check out the 12 Kyle podcast. Remember, this podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. From time to time, we drop bonus episodes on Sundays at midnight, just like this one. If you feel so inclined, you feel generous, you feel like blessing, hit us up on Cash App to support us financially. $TWELVEKYLE. Again, that's going to do it for me. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.